David Betancourt joining us now on the Live Zone Primetime. He's the collectibles editor at The Athletic. But tonight we're also talking to him in his capacity as a comic culture professor. So, David, thanks so much for joining us here on the Live Zone Primetime.
Thanks for having me, sir.
All right, so we want to dive into the San Diego Comic-Con over the weekend. Obviously, this is always a huge deal when it comes to movies. It's always a big deal lately for Marvel, and Marvel making a splash as usual. So, a lot of topics we can touch on, but I want to start with the Avengers Doomsday, because obviously if we rewind 1 week, that trailer comes out. It's on the heels of the spectacle that is the Odyssey. What did you make of the trailer, and what did you make of some of the fan reaction to it?
You know, there's been a little bit of a discourse that because Christopher Nolan, who will always be one of my favorite directors, because he's so reluctant to rely on CGI and special effects in his movies, he wants it to be as realistic as possible. There's a little bit of a discourse that after everyone's coming out of the Odyssey, seeing such a CGI-heavy trailer like Avengers Doomsday is almost like a disservice or insulting to the theatrical eye, which I think is totally bogus. I mean, the MCU is 2 decades old. We know that these are CGI-heavy events. While Nolan is, not the biggest CGI person in the world, there's a little bit of it in the Dark Knight trilogy. It's not like he's totally opposed to it. Really, for me, I just think that there's this kind of sect of theater and film critics that are so sick of superhero movies and want them to go away, and ironically use one of the greatest superhero movie directors ever, Christopher Nolan, as a way to kind of spit on the genre, if you will. But I don't think anything of it. The views over the first 24 hours of the Doomsday trailer were spectacular. The pre-sales have been fantastic numbers for Marvel Studios, and that doesn't detract from the fact that the Odyssey was also a really good movie.
All right, well, not to get too nerdy about it, but at the same time, when the Avengers Doomsday hits theaters, it's going up against Dune 3, and Dune 3 had booked most of the IMAX theaters. So now Marvel and Disney are kind of trying to sell people on this idea of Infinity Vision. Can you explain what that is?
So, Infinity Vision in a nutshell for me is just the fact that these 2 giant movies, Dune and Avengers, refuse to move. It's like this great game of will you or won't you in terms of is one of these giants, Dune led by Warner Brothers, Avengers Doomsday led by Disney, are they going to move out of that December 18th time slot, which right now it's looking like neither one is going to budge. So Warner Brothers and Dune have already reserved almost all of the IMAX screens, and obviously Marvel would want their biggest movie of the year, Avengers Doomsday, which is expected to be a billion-dollar behemoth. Obviously, they would want IMAX screens too, but they don't have them. So you come up with this thing called an Infinity Vision. We'll see what it relates to in terms of how large of screens they are utilizing. Honestly, the biggest takeaway from this is obviously with an IMAX ticket, you can charge more for the ticket, i.e. there's more money to be made. So in some way, Disney would like a large screen theatrical experience that they can charge a little bit more for to help with the box office. I don't think it's going to make the biggest deal at the end of the day. I think the pre-sale numbers have shown that people are going to be hyped to see Avengers Doomsday regardless of the size of the screen.
Yeah, no question about that. Now, some people found the trailer underwhelming, and there have been a lot of reports about whether they rushed production or whether there was script issues, all kinds of stuff. Do you think Marvel can win back some of those haters a little bit? And how did you feel about the trailer? Are you excited about it? Are you excited for some of the characters that we're seeing come back?
I must say, the thing that really got me excited was Robert Downey Jr.'s voice as Dr. Doom. Because I think there was this maybe a mindset of the fact that he's coming. They brought him back. They brought back the King. They brought back the MVP of Marvel Studios in another capacity, in another alternate universe role. But it's still Robert Downey Jr. at the end of the day. And I think there was some thought out there that it might just be another Iron Man under the armor of Dr. Doom. But, he's got a very heavy, thick Latverian accent. And I think that was a great way to establish that, he is going to be a completely different character. I thought, first of all, releasing the trailer before San Diego Comic-Con, I thought was a very bold move. I think a lot of people expected that the trailer would have been at Comic-Con, and it really showed that they had more, obviously surprises up their sleeve. But I was impressed by the trailer. You know, I don't like when trailers reveal the whole movie to me. There's a whole lot that's going to be going on in this film that isn't in the trailer, and I would much rather see it on the screen for the first time than have it ruined for me in a preview.
Well, we're going to talk about some of those surprises here in just a second, but if we rewind 1 year, that was when, you know, Robert Downey took off the mask and we learned that he was going to be playing Dr. Doom. Now, fast forward to this past weekend, we had a majority of the Doomsday cast up there on the stage. Did we learn anything new from them, or did we get a little more insight into what may have brought back Robert Downey Jr., what may have brought back Chris Evans as Steve Nomad, not necessarily as Captain America this time around?
Yes and no. You know, I think that in terms of what was revealed, a lot of it is stuff we already know. I think we just got a more up close look, and for the first time we saw all of these fantastic Marvel casts together. You know, you've got the original Avengers cast, you've got the original X-Men from the 20th Century Fox era, which are now a part of the Disney family, which is why you're going to see the original X-Men in this movie. I think, if anything, more was revealed about what won't be in the movie. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds had a very viral moment appearing in his gray Deadpool suit asking questions, but it doesn't look like he's going to be in this first Avengers Doomsday movie. More than likely they're going to be saving that for Avengers Secret Wars. Ryan Reynolds was at Fanatics Fest last week in New York, and I was up there, and he did say that we will see why Thor was crying in Deadpool and Wolverine, so it looks like big surprises like that are going to be saved for the Avengers Doomsday sequel, Avengers Secret Wars, which I am convinced, whatever happens in Doomsday, I'm convinced Secret Wars is going to be the biggest Marvel Studios movie of all time.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a big thing to say based on the fact that Avengers Endgame is one of the biggest movies of all time. All right. So those big surprises that you talked about, I think one of the biggest was the return of Black Panther. We learned that not only is Black Panther 3 in the works, not only is Ryan Coogler returning, Oscar winner Ryan Coogler, I should say, but we also learned who will take over the role of the Wakandan superhero. So can you talk to me a little bit about David Johnson, who he is, and what role he's going to be playing?
David Johnson, a young actor who a lot of people know from television and film, on the film side, Alien, on the television side industry. He is a young up-and-comer. He's got a built-in fan base. You know, this isn't... it's not the big name, but it's the surprising name. I think at this point, you know, I've seen some discourse online about this wasn't a big enough announcement just because the Black Panther, let's face it, is one of Marvel Studios' biggest franchises, a franchise that is expected to pull in $1 billion when it drops, with both Black Panther doing that and Wakanda Forever coming close in the pandemic era. But at this point, what the difference between Black Panther 3 and the first Black Panther and Wakanda Forever is Ryan Coogler is now Ryan Coogler. And what I mean by that is, with the success of Sinners, Coogler is kind of in now the upper echelon of directors, where there are going to be just as many geeks that see Black Panther 3 as people that are just seeing it because it's Ryan Coogler's next film. And with that comes a lot of trust. Ryan has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the Black Panther franchise. I did a feature on him back in my time at the Washington Post for the first movie, and I know how much this franchise means to him. You know, he's creating his own worlds now. So for the fact that he's coming back to likely wrap up the trilogy before they give David his own franchise, I think is very special. You know, at the end of Wakanda Forever, we meet the son of T'Challa. They addressed Chadwick Boseman's death in Wakanda Forever by having T'Challa pass away as well. We find out that he has a son. And in Black Panther 3, that son is going to be grown, and David is going to play him. And I'm very much looking forward to, no one knows what's happening yet. Ryan hasn't really said too much, but it's looking like, there could be some reluctance to pass on the burden of the mantle, of the royal mantle of the Black Panther to him. Could that be coming from Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia? Could that be coming from Shuri herself? We don't know, but it's shaping up to be spectacular, and I think it was just... I was not expecting... I was expecting some Avengers Doomsday stuff. I was not expecting a new Black Panther being announced, because let's face it, there's been a huge discourse over that, about whether it should be recast, whether the character of T'Challa should be recast. But I think David David's going to do a fantastic job, and I think afterwards he'll be one of the biggest stars on the planet.
Yeah, and obviously big shoes to fill, and I know there was a rumor mill was running wild about who should maybe fill that role. So I do think it was a smart move to maybe go with a slightly less well-known actor who people can really just get to know. Let me ask you a quick question as a side note here. You mentioned how Ryan Coogler is one of the upper echelon directors in Hollywood right now, let alone in the MCU. There have always been reports that Marvel and Disney like to kind of keep their people on a tight leash. They have a vision for it, and people kind of have to come in, and they have a little bit of freedom, but they also have some guidelines, let's just say. Does Ryan have to follow those same ones, or do you think they trust him implicitly?
I truly believe they trust Ryan explicitly. I think that when I did my reporting on Black Panther for the very first movie, Ryan was very much aware of how Marvel can be on directors. I think there's a notion out there that whoever directs a Marvel Studios movie is just there to say cut and action because the film has already been mapped out so much. Take the first Black Panther movie, for example. That was a movie that dealt heavily between the relationship between Africa and its diaspora in the United States. That's not something that's generally expected to be a topic in a superhero or a Disney movie, but Ryan was very adamant that he wanted that to be a little bit of the flavor of the movie, and Disney and Marvel Studios said okay. And that was back in the first movie. Now we're dealing with Oscar winner, creator of Sinners, Ryan Coogler. So I'm pretty sure Marvel Studios is going to be okay with whatever it is he wants to do, including the type of film he films on, which I believe there were hints that this might be a 70-millimeter film as well.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to that as well. All right, so let's go from one Ryan to the other, because I think the Black Panther announcement may have slightly overshadowed the other one, which was Ryan Gosling officially joining the MCU, and he's going to be playing Ghost Rider. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, this is something that, if you've been paying attention, Ryan Gosling has been kind of wink-wink hinting at wanting to play this character for a long time. It's his favorite Marvel character. He's been very vocal, especially with outlets like MTV during various Comic-Cons, where he said, hey, I'd like to play this character. For whatever reason, the timing wasn't right, but the timing's right now. Also, you've got Sean Levy directing. So right now, Ryan Coogler's doing a lot of big things for Disney because he's also got a Star Wars movie coming out as well. The irony is that his wife, Eva Mendes, starred alongside Nicolas Cage in the first Ghost Rider movies back in the day. So that should lead to some interesting conversations at the dinner table, I'm sure. I even saw, I believe it was either Downey or Pedro Pascal, who hinted that they'd love to see Ghost Rider alongside Nicolas Cage's Spider-Noir, which was also a big hit as well. Ghost Rider is a character, those Nicolas Cage movies are underrated. They're not perfect, but they're a lot of fun. And I think Ryan's casting here it's this new phase of Marvel. The original MCU, with the exception of Downey, who was probably the biggest name back in the day, was built on actors who were on the up and up. Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth weren't the stars that they are now when the MCU first got started. But now you have someone like Ryan Gosling, big A-list star, and you're seeing this new level of Marvel where you can go out and get the big name to lead your franchise.
That's an interesting take on that, for sure. Do you think some of these characters will now be introduced in these Avengers movies as we move forward, or do you think these are going to be standalone first?
That's a great question. If it's going to happen, I believe it'll happen in Secret Wars. I just think that Secret Wars is just going to be this big gumbo. Sorry, I'm just coming from New Orleans, so I have gumbo on the mind. I think it's just going to be this big soup of everything Marvel has ever done on the screen in Secret Wars. But I think maybe if those characters popped up in any way, it might be a little distracting. There's been this huge rumor about the fact that Marvel Studios, once they're done with this latest Avengers saga, is going to move on to the X-Men. There's rumors that Sadie Sink, who's starring in the new Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day, could possibly be a character like Jean Grey. We still don't know that yet and won't know that until the end of this week. But whatever is the case, Marvel is taking their time. We don't know who the new X-Men are going to be. I think that's purposeful. I think they want to keep all eyes and concentration on this current saga. So I think the next steps that are coming up next, I don't think we'll meet them just yet. But who knows? I didn't think they'd announce the new Black Panther, and they did. So anything's possible.
Anything's possible. And you kind of teed up me right into our next thing. Before we get to any of that, we've got a long wait, not only for Avengers Doomsday, but all those other things we just talked about. The end of this week, though, we have a new chapter in the Spider-Man franchise, brand new day. What do fans need to know going into this one, A? And B, is this the last MCU movie we're getting before Avengers Doomsday? So is this sort of setting us up for that?
Absolutely. We're definitely getting it set up towards Doomsday. How much this movie, this really kind of feels like a standalone. Obviously, the deal that brings Spider-Man to Marvel Studios between Sony and Disney, because Sony owns the right to Spider-Man, means that these are always shared movies, so you'll see Tom Holland's Spider-Man appearing with other Marvel characters. We know that John Bernthal's DC native John Bernthal's Punisher is in this movie. We know that Mark Ruffalo is going to be playing the Hulk in this movie as well. Sadie Sink, we don't know who her character is, but there's going to be some guest stars here, but this feels more like a street-level Spider-Man movie, more so than Tom Holland's previous movies, which always kind of felt like, hey, let's remind you that Spider-Man is a part of the Avengers. This one feels like it's kind of isolated and is going to be its own little Spidey moment.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Obviously, if I can keep you for one more minute and go from Marvel to DC, it wasn't necessarily the summer they were hoping for. Supergirl, not necessarily the box office, success that they were hoping for. They get a chance to kind of right the ship a little bit here with a new series that's hitting the small screen, HBO Max, next month with Lanterns. What can you tell us about that? Are you looking forward to it? And do you think DC can keep the momentum going that it started with Superman?
Obviously, the box office of Supergirl wasn't what they were anticipating. They are currently filming Superman Man of Tomorrow, the sequel to Superman, right now. That'll be scheduled for next year. But right now, the thing that's coming up is Lanterns in August. Now, I'm a big Damon Lindelof fan. His work on HBO's Watchmen, I think, is one of the great things ever. If you look at the last 25 years, if you say comic book culture got started with the first X-Men movie in 2000, from that moment to now, I think Damon Lindelof's Watchmen is one of the greatest things ever made in terms of something being based off a comic book in live action. Having said that, I trust Damon. So this Green Lantern series has looked very grounded. I think kind of like the hesitancy to embrace it is because when you think of Green Lantern, you think of space cops, you think of deep space, you think of seeing them in the suits and seeing a whole lot of green constructs being made with those rings. We haven't gotten a lot of that in the trailers. I think they're holding that back on purpose. But Damon has done enough good things with DC properties that I at least have to give him a chance before checking it out.
All right. Well, we'll probably be checking back in with you when that comes out for your thoughts and review. David, if people want to follow you for more comic book culture, how can they do it?
I'm at David Betancourt Writes on Instagram or ADC Fanboy on Twitter.
All right. We appreciate you spending some time with us here tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Just about every 3 months or so, Tony, I got to geek out with my man David.
He is so great. I mean, he has such a great, insight on the movies and just kind of the tectonic plates that shift in the movie industry, why these directors are doing it. Has really good creative insight. Love listening.
And he teaches a class on all of this at the University of Maryland.
I know he does.
He's an adjunct both
and
at
he did the comics thing a couple months back at the libraries.
Yeah. Plus, he's in on all of like the collectibles and everything with his work with the Athletics. So both sports, comics, which are obviously things that I know exactly.
What does he know? Exactly.
All right, Tony P, we got to